You've got north-facing socket keyboards and south-facing socket keyboards, but let's talk about the pros and cons of each so you know what to look out for in your next keyboard purchase. Let's go.
In terms of functionality, there is no difference between the two, so it's not like one has better performance than the other. But aesthetically, the differences are the LED placement and the keycap compatibility, and we all know the visual is 50% of the keyboard experience. With north-facing switches and sockets, we have the LEDs on the north side, making them extremely compatible with backlit keycaps. Most backlit compatible keycaps out there have the letters right above the north positioned LED, so the light source is directly underneath, creating a really nice glow that's quite a godsend when gaming in a darker environment. But if you don't use backlit keycaps, you can see that the LEDs don't look very bright, even though much of that is reliant on the color of the plate. On the other hand, with south-facing switches, the LEDs are on the south side and look so much brighter when using the keyboard even though it's the same brightness, because the LEDs are facing you now. But since the LEDs are down here, regular backlit keycaps aren't going to be able to take much advantage of that light and will look much dimmer than on north-facing switch keyboards. Just by flipping the keyboard around, you can see the difference in LED brightness between a north-facing switch and a south-facing switch. It's quite a big difference. But with these south-facing switches, you also have the choice of getting backlit ninja keycaps where the top is blank but the letters are printed on the front. And this design is pretty cool because it's stealthy on top and you still get the benefit of backlit legends. But backlit ninja keycaps are pretty rare, and the only ones I have and seen come stock from this Ajazz AK60 keyboard.
So the next thing is keycap compatibility, and this is probably the biggest reason to choose south-facing keyboards over north-facing keyboards. North-facing keyboards are compatible with almost all keycap profiles except for one, cherry profile keycaps.
When you mix north-facing switches and cherry profile keycaps, you get something called keycap interference, which happens when you bottom out a keycap and the bottom of the keycap touches the top housing of the switch. This results in a weird sound that's really hard to explain, so you can listen to it yourself.
Now thankfully, there is an exception to using cherry profile keycaps on a north-facing keyboard, and the way to do that is to use a switch where the stem doesn't go all the way down into its housing when you bottom it out.
Examples of this kind of switch would be Holy Pandas, Glorious Pandas, Fecker Pandas, Boba U4T, and even Epo Maker Chocolate Rose switches. That small distance where it doesn't go completely into the top housing gives you enough clearance where interference doesn't happen, and it seems like it's a feature exclusive to some tactile switches only. And the reason why people love using cherry profile keycaps is because majority of the coolest keycap designs are made by GMK and EPBT, and both companies specialize in cherry profile keycaps, and it's kind of the norm at the moment. So for the time being, if you want some really cool looking keycaps, it's in your best interest to get a south-facing keyboard.
And finally, for costs between the two, because majority of the keyboards on the market are north-facing keyboards, it also makes sense that your budget keyboards are also going to be north-facing keyboards. And the interesting thing is that the prices can range from $30 all the way to $200 from your favorite brands like Razer and HyperX, while south-facing keyboards are typically more reserved for custom high-end keyboards such as the Keychron Q1 and the GMMK Pro, and they can range from $150 and higher. But that's not to say that there aren't any cheap south-facing keyboards out there, because there are, and I can think of two from the top of my head. The first one is the FL Esports MK870, which is a 10 keyless keyboard that costs around $70, which is actually a really good deal. And the second one is the NJ80, which is basically your budget GMMK Pro because it has a volume wheel, and the lowest I've seen it sold is $120 when it typically retails for $200. And the best part about these keyboards is that they're both hot swappable, aka the best feature on a mechanical keyboard because it makes it more flexible and future-proof. If a switch breaks, you can just swap it out with another, and if you want to try some different switches down the road, you can do so without having to buy another keyboard. Isn't that a great feature? And I'm going to link both keyboards down below. But that's been it. With north-facing keyboards, you're getting better LED output on your backlit keycaps, but they're not fully compatible with cherry profile keycaps, and on average, you'll be spending less money on these keyboards. And as for south-facing keyboards, they're fully compatible with all keycap profiles. The LEDs look much brighter because they're facing you, but it's much harder to find some compatible backlit ninja keycaps, and on average you'll be spending a little more money on these keyboards. And even though you're spending a little more money, there are virtually no downsides to a south-facing keyboard, and it's definitely the preferred choice over north-facing keyboards. Hopefully you learned something new about mechanical keyboards today, and if you have any questions, let me know down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.